whoa. That widening and that subtle lift in my larynx is not choking me, it's supporting my extension into that highest pitch. Oh. But if I was to do the other way, oh, I can't get it, I'm too tight. So the larynx, we have to learn, needs to be flexible. Here we go. So welcome back for a new month of vocal technique training. We're going to kick this week off with range expansion, which I think is something that most singers are interested in. I have yet to meet a singer who didn't want to expand their range, who didn't want to sing higher. Maybe I'll meet one day. But pretty much everybody wants to learn about expanding their range. I also have a number of students who've come to me and asked about extending their range down and learning how to sing a little bit lower, or maybe how to improve the low end of their voice. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today too. Does that sound cool? Okay, so the first thing that we want to think about, I'm going to start with a little bit of explanation today, because then we're going to lead right into the vocalizations that support those explanations. So the first point that I want you to think about is, if you're looking to expand your range, you need to start working with all of your vocal registration. You need to vocalize all of your vocal registers every day. What are some of our primary vocal registers that we may already be aware of?
Head voice.
Head voice is one. That's one of our three primaries.
Mixed voice and chest voice.
Absolutely. Those are the other two. Okay. Anybody able to name any of the registers outside of those three primary ones?
Maybe like a whistle tone?
So we have above our primary registers, right? Above the head voice, we've got what could be referred to as the whistle register. Okay. We'll talk a little bit about that today. Below our normal registration, we have vocal fry. These are all different places that we can sing and that we want to be exploring and making sure that we vocalize. But again, the most important thing, guys, is that a lot of people, when they come to training, they tend to try to gravitate towards or just kind of exist in the part of their voice that's already working well. And that makes sense, right? None of us want to move into those awkward areas that don't sing so good. We all want to kind of sing with the part of our voice that feels the strongest and the best. But if you really want to move forward with your vocal progress, it's about leaning into those weaknesses and making sure that you don't leave any areas of the voice untouched, okay? I've compared it in the past to like going to the gym, okay? So let's pretend like we're back in the 80s and you've got those gym rats, and you used to see those guys that would go in and work their upper body but never touch their legs, so they'd end up, you know, looking a little bit funny with chicken legs. That's kind of like what it would be like if you just leaned into one part of your voice, okay? So we want to make sure that we've got a full working instrument and we've got exercises to balance all of them. So let's start there today, and let's make sure that I give you an exercise for each of the three primary registers and one that starts to sing through all of them, okay? So we're going to start first with chest voice. And what I want you to do to start to encourage and strengthen chest voice is isolate your resonance in the mouth cavity. We don't want to feel it getting up in the nasal cavity, because that's going to be connected to mixed resonance and head resonance. We want to isolate in the mouth cavity. So we're going to do that by attacking with a B consonant, and I want you to feel the attack happen right on your lips, and then isolate the sound in the mouth. Say, ba, ba, ba. Right. Be careful that you don't kind of anticipate the pitch and go, ba, because that's going to go nasal cavity, mouth cavity. Just right, a pure B, right on the lips, ba, ba, ba. Good, let's all start like that, okay? So we're gonna start in a comfortable chest range and go ba 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 ba, 2, 3, 4. Good, keep it in the mouth. Feel it nicely. Ba 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 ba. so I tried to call out, I don't know if you could hear me, but I said 2 more for the feminine voices. So in general, it's fine if you went above that, but you started to probably mix across your bridge, okay? So when you're trying to isolate chest voice and give that a good workout, it's important that you vocalize right up to your primary bridge. And in general, for most feminine voices, that's going to be at A, B flat, B. So you can start to identify that area, that zone in your voice that feels transitional, and you can take the chest voice up to it, but try not to push through it. Okay? And for masculine voices, in general, that's going to be E, F, F sharp. And the same thing, it's going to be unique to each one of the singers, and you want to make sure that you start to vocalize. You're going to feel tension pick up in that zone, and so you want to go up to the point where you start to feel tension increase, and then turn it around. Does that make sense? Okay. Other things you can do to work out your chest voice are sing with wider vowels. So the wider the vowel is, the more it encourages mouth resonance, chest resonance. So for instance, say, that's a narrow vowel, and so that feels very head dominant. But if you start to widen the mouth, yeah, you're going to feel a lot of chest resonance. So if you're one of those singers that needs to strengthen your chest voice and needs to bring a little bit more presence to it, vocalizing on wide vowels and anything that helps the voice isolate in the mouth cavity is going to be your game. Okay, so let's pop up to the next register, and we're going to go to middle voice, okay? Now that's how we typically start most of our classes. Middle voice then needs to feel resonance moving through the nasal cavity, and it vibrates off of the back of your throat, which is also called your pharynx. So some in the vocal community will call this pharyngeal resonance, okay? You can feel this like if you went down south and you got a little bit of twang going, say like, how y'all doing? Right, we can also think of French nasality, say croissant. Okay, and you can immediately start to feel that twang or that pharyngeal resonance that comes in and moves the voice above speech towards the pharyngeal cavity. Okay, so we're going to work there next. In order to isolate sound in that cavity and in that register, we're going to sing on NG. So say, Now this takes a light touch. There's no vowel to it, so there's not a lot of space in the vocal tract. So you don't want to push the voice. You want to sing with a nice, healthy, medium volume and feel your chords gently connect in combination with those 2 consonants. Good. Let's try a 9-note scale today that sounds like this. We're going to be singing. And now after isolating in the mouth, we want to feel all of the voice moving through the nasal cavity. You're going to feel resonant sensations, sympathetic vibrations up on the bridge of your nose. And if you're real conscious of it, you should feel them inward on the back wall of your throat. Okay? So here we go together. Let's try that NG on a 9-tone scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Middle voice. That's it. Glide back and forth. Very smooth. That's going to take you right through that bridge, right through that passaggio. One more for the feminine voices. And now we're moving into the masculine bridge. Here's E, F, F sharp. And one more for the masculine voices. Okay? If that made your voice shake or flip at all, that's totally normal, and actually that's progress, okay, for a certain level of singer. Because what you're feeling there is one muscle group is starting to try to release its dominance, and another one is starting to be employed, and what we're trying to do is teach them to cooperate. And the more that they learn to cooperate with your exercises, the smoother your bridge is going to become, okay? But if you're not, if you're trying to hang on to one register and force it, which is part of our lesson today. Like if you're working to expand your range and you're trying to push and pull one primary register that you sing in a round, you're going to be real frustrated with your range, okay, and also with your stamina and your vocal health. So you've got to make sure that you start to release. And a lot of times release and beginning to employ muscles that maybe haven't been used as much is going to create some vulnerabilities in your voice, and you got to be prepared for that. That's actually progress. So feeling little shakes or little flips or little breaks is totally fine. Obviously, we don't want those things in performance. We don't want them up on stage, but you've got to move forward with your instrument, get those things worked out before you get to the stage. Cool, so NG hums can be great. Another one that you can do is go to that French nasal lilt or that Nashville twang and say, no, no, no. Try that real quick. Right, so we're putting a nasal lilt on the voice that's guaranteeing that we don't sing down in the mouth. Say, no, no, no. And you can feel that has kind of a dull quality because I'm isolating in the mouth cavity. If I add a little bit of nasal ring to it, nasal resonance, no. Now that's an exaggeration, that's not a finished sound, but that's going to guarantee that I start allowing some of those notes to get up into that middle register, okay? So let's try a little bit of that real quick. Let's try this pattern, and we're going to go. So I'm starting, and I'm going to get no, 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 no. No, 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 no. Now this is so that when I cross into that bridge territory, I don't get no, 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 no. And start to get heavy and stuck in chest. I get no, 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 no. And I start to allow the voice to cross the bridge, but maintain its volume and maintain its fullness. So try that real quick. Make sure you let a little nasal resonance dominate the voice. No. But as we start to sing higher, that should feel very freeing and guide your voice across the bridge. Yeah.
Is it pronounced with the N-O-N or N-O-N-G?
Yeah. You can think N-O-N. Yeah, no G on it, just non, okay? Like the French word for no, okay? Just a little bit of twang. Non, okay? Here we go. Let's try from the bottom real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, 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 no. Let it feel nasal. But also feel that O vowel in there. That creates a little openness. Good. No, 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 no. Good. Right across the bridge now for feminine voices. And here we go into the masculine bridge. For feminine voices, you're going to head voice. No, 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 no. Good. Now only sing as high as you can comfortably. We're going to go to head voice for masculine voices. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Up to high C. So by using that vowel consonant combination and a little bit of that nasal lilt, you are allowing your chords to thin out properly. And let's talk about that for a minute, okay? That's another one of our key points for expanding your range today. Higher does not mean harder, okay? If we start to think about our voice, one of the most helpful tips that I think people discover is that your voice doesn't work up and down. It actually stretches back and forth like a rubber band, okay? So if you look down inside your neck, if we cut your head off, and you look down at your vocal cords, they're lengthening and thinning out properly across your breathing hole, okay? So they're lengthening and thinning out like a rubber band, and they're trying to stretch back to front. And the thinner that they become, the longer and the thinner that they stretch, the higher the pitch you can create, okay? Think of any string instrument, like if you're tuning a guitar and you twist the nut and you make that string a little bit thinner, okay, you're gonna get a sharper pitch. So if you're trying to make the pitch a little higher, those chords have got to thin out properly. The lower you sing, that muscle works in an opposite direction and it shortens and thickens your vocal cords. As we sing higher, you've got to let your vocal cords thin out properly for higher pitches. And if you're trying to push your voice louder and harder, what happens is the muscles that are responsible for shortening and thickening the chords and bringing them together bulk up. And that prevents the chords from thinning out for higher pitches. So when we were doing the no, 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 and you started to sing higher, you should have felt like weight was coming off your voice and you were getting a little bit higher and lighter, okay? To take that principle even further and to see how high you might be able to sing, we're gonna go to what are called SOVT exercises. So that's gonna be lip trills, tongue trills, or vowel consonant combinations that start to balance the pressure on your voice, and again, bring consistent closure, but allow the chords to thin out as we sing higher. So everybody pick a filter for me real quick. This could be a lip trill. It could be a tongue trill. Okay? Or it could be both. Or if you're at home, you can use a singing straw, or you could blow some bubbles into a glass of water. You can also do things like sing nasal consonants, like and that we did before. All of these things create balance in the volume and in the airflow. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a device that we put in front of the voice that helps you sing with evenness and balance as we sing up and down the voice, okay? So what's important is not that you get hung up on any one of these filters, but you use the one that works best for you, okay? So let's go through it. We're going to use a much longer scale now. And I want you to try to sing from the very lowest part of your voice to the very top. Now, again, that's going to be individual for each singer, so please only work at your own range. Don't strain just because I keep playing. Remember that I've got a whole host of different voice types here in the class, okay? So we're going to be going, okay? So try to release and feel vulnerable with the scale. Here we go. From the bottom, get a good breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Go for even volume, up and down. Allow that to create release through the top. Feel like the weight comes off your voice. And see if you can imagine those chords thinning out, back to front, as you sing up and down. That's it. Be vulnerable. Get a smooth stream of air going. Keep your filter going. Amazing. We're above high C. This is high E. Good. And I've got plenty of singers that can get that high, okay, sopranos and tenor voices, and anybody with training is going to be able to expand their range. So that's another thing that we need you to start to get to immediately. This is a little bit more psychological. But if you start to use these training tools and these filters, you're going to notice that you have more range than you thought you did. It's probably going to feel very different than you imagined. It's probably going to feel like you're doing something wrong because you're singing into a voice, a part of your voice that you haven't used very much, okay? And the sensation is going to be completely new. But one of the things that you have to get over is telling yourself that you don't have range. I can't tell you how many people walk through my door and they start off by telling me that they have a low voice. And then the first vocalization that we do together in a private session, I'm taking them way up into the highest voice types. And actually, if we're looking at the world, the most common voice types tend to be tenor and soprano, okay? So a lot of people have more range than they think they do. It's just that they haven't learned how to access it or how to unlock it. And so they sort of persist with singing lower songs and lower keys, and maybe they got told in middle school choir or something because they didn't know how to sing up in that head voice properly that they have a low voice, and they got put in that part of the box. And so then they grow up thinking that way, and they put this limit on their training, okay? So you got to take those limits off immediately, and I want you to think, I'm going to try to sing impossibly high, higher than I thought I could, okay? And start to expand that range. Now, with caution, okay? I don't need you straining for any kind of range, but as long as you're flowing and you're keeping everything even and consistent, and you feel your voice keep going, then you're in a place where you need to keep singing. You need to keep vocalizing and start bringing that voice up to a balance with the rest of your instrument. Make sure that you feel free of extrinsic tension. You don't want to feel tension in your neck or in your jaw or in your tongue, and that's the other thing that these filters are so good at doing. These SOVT exercises, they reduce any extrinsic tension, and they start to have you singing much more efficiently at the vocal cord and breath level. So we got to finish the registration. So let's go up to the high head voice real quick. When we're working on high head voice, it's the inverse of the chest voice. So we talked about how we want to use wider vowels to isolate the sound in the mouth. If we're trying to get access to more range, we don't want to get more and more open, which is another misconception about singing higher. So you'll see a lot of young singers, and they'll get more and more open, wider and wider the higher they sing. They think they're creating space. But what's messing them up is that when you create more space in the front, you diminish the space in the back. And that's what makes you feel so tight and stuck. Okay? And when you narrow the front, you actually create more inward space and more freedom and access to the high voice. So if you're trying to first unlock your high range, you need to be working with smaller, more narrow vowels. That's why so many of our high head voice exercises are on tiny vowels like woo and wee. Okay? And we're going on those small vowels. Very counterintuitive. But if I was trying to get up high and I went, I'm so stuck in my throat and my larynx comes up high, everything's gripping and I can't unlock that range. So we want to go to some easy sounds up there, right? Let's start with wee, okay? So I want you to go wee. And I want you to think of small round lips, soften the corners of your mouth, and I want you to feel very tall inside, almost like when you start to yawn. Wee. Right, you want to feel a smooth, cool stream of air going up around behind the soft palate. Whee! I don't want to be concerned with being up front at all. I'll teach you how to do that in our mix class at the end of the month, okay? This is about getting extension and feeling the high part of my voice become unlocked and not feel like it's locked up, okay? So freedom first, and then power will follow. So we're going for those small vowels. Now, if your voice sounds too breathy off that and you're getting a disconnect, whee! You can try starting with a little bit of a consonant. Say, kee. That'll give you light chord closure on the attack, but make sure it doesn't widen. It's still got to be round. Kee. Or some of my students find a lot of success. If your larynx is feeling stuck, try Fwee, an FW, and see if the larynx can release off that attack. Fwee. Good. Again, whatever works best for you in terms of the attack, but we're going to be coming in. And I'm giving my high head voice a sing. Okay, let's try it. 1, 2, 3. Good. Find a little bit of release. Now you'll also hear me singing with a fast vibrato. The reason that I'm trying to utilize vibrato here is not for style, but it's because if you sing with straight tone, there tends to be a little extra tension in the voice, okay? So that's okay if you can't find your vibrato, but you want to keep going for it. Because putting a little bit of squeeze on the voice is what gets rid of that vibrato. So I'm going for the complete release, okay? Now we need to go a little higher. I started on that C5, okay, which is actually only middle voice for feminine voices, so we're going to go climb up now. Masculine voices, if you feel like you can go higher, follow, but if it gets too high, that's totally fine, okay? We got to get up for feminine voices. Here we go. Breathe. 1, 2, 3. Smooth stream of air. And sing lighter than you think you need to. That's C6, okay? And some of you are going to be able to discover that as well. Now, we actually have a register that occurs above the traditional performance head voice register. And that gets named all kinds of different things. When I was coming up in contemporary singing, it was called the superhead voice. And I like that, okay? My superhead. You'll also hear it called flageolet, which is a French term that means flute-like, okay? And this is before you start to access the whistle register, which is up even higher. The difference is we have an extension beyond head voice where the vocal cords are still operating. Okay, they're still coming together for phonation. When you hit whistle resonance, they're starting to separate and some air is passing through the vocal cords, and that's what gives it that very distinctive whistle-like tone. So whistle voice is the only register where some of the vocal cords are separated and the air is passing through the vocal cords. But before we hit that extreme high register, you get into what's called super head voice or head voice extension or flageolet. And all of you should start to experiment with that. This is probably the most important element in terms of extending your high voice. If you discover your flageolet, it provides more release and more flexibility to your tone, and it improves all the other registers. How do we get into it, okay? So what we want to do is we want to start to use some devices that sneak us into this very light connection from our vocal cords. We need our cords to be as thin as possible, but be coming together for phonation. And so there are some tricks we can do. You can do what are called hooty hoos, fwooty fwoos, which is what we just talked about, and water drops. Okay? So for instance, let's all try to hoot like an owl, and I want you to feel like you're blowing through a straw again, and I want you to make a very light sound. Use an impossibly light volume, and just try to activate your vocal cords. So say, oh, oh, oh. Almost like a puppy crying. Oh, 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 oh. Good, and start where you can. But again, use a very small embouchure and a very light touch in the voice. And like I said, you can also start, if the H is causing you to be too disconnected and falsetto, then I want you to try to use an FW. Right, and go for kind of a whimper and just see if you can vocalize. Here's the secret that you need to keep in mind. If you can trick your voice into making a sound, that sound can be developed into a sung note. But first you have to teach the mechanism not to lock up, and you've got to teach the vocal cords independently to come together to produce the pitch. So if you're going for kind of a whimper or a cry sound, that's a really good start. Yeah, who got that? Do that real quick, Catherine, on the mic. Good. Good. Okay. So again, like a little bit of a hooty hoo or a fwooty fwoo, and teaching your vocal cords to stretch out impossibly thin into that super head voice register. Okay. The register above head voice before we get into any kind of whistle activity. Another way to do it is with BWOOP. Now with these, I want you to imitate like a big drop of water falling in the sink. So listen to me real quick on the mic. Whoop, 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 whoop. And hopefully that sounds like a big fat drop of water. Do you hear that? The reason I love this one is it has a light cry that's activating my chords, and by using BW, I don't put any strain back on my neck. So this is what really unlocked a lot of the sounds for me. Right, and I'm not even thinking notes. I'm just trying to make sounds and teach my vocal cords to activate. Try it real quick. Start in a comfortable place. Good. Make sure that you keep your cheeks released, okay? If they start to feel like they're back here, that larynx is going to be high and tight. So keep everything completely relaxed. That's right. And see if you can sneak those vocal cords together. Then if I came to a pitch, okay, and I went like, okay, I can start to gain more facility over those notes gradually. It's not a trick, okay? But first I've got to teach my voice to connect those pitches without tension. See, I'm sneaking my way into it. And see how it takes the lightest touch. And this is where I was saying, higher doesn't mean harder when you're getting into these extreme ranges, okay? It's actually so much more about precise control and balance of the chord phonation and the breath flow. That's not a big effort. As soon as I push on that, I can't get it. I'm so tight that I can't get that pitch to phonate. So go for those impossibly light coordinations first. Light right, not strong wrong. Then you could start trying to maybe do something with it. Okay, but this is all informing the rest of my voice as well. So the reason you want to explore this very extreme range is not necessarily because you're going to use it in a song, but because the release and the facility is going to improve all the other registers that you sing with. The next thing that we need to talk about real quick, the next point in range expansion, is larynx control. Now, a lot of us have been taught that we need to sing with a low larynx, or at least that our larynx needs to stay relaxed. And that's true in general, okay? If this larynx is coming up high and choking me off, especially as I come up to a bridge area, I'm gonna feel real stuck. So a lot of you, again, remember that all of this is connected in the vocal tract. It's kind of like puppet strings. So if you smile, or if you widen your vowel, the larynx comes up with it, okay? Everyone rest your fingers here on your larynx gently. And if you widen, you're gonna feel a subtle lift in your larynx. Say, yeah. Right. So until I get control over my larynx, and again, a high larynx, we've discussed this a lot for contemporary singing. A high larynx can really stylize your voice. It can make it sound brighter and stronger. It can be a really good color, in fact, an important color for rock and pop and a lot of contemporary music theater, okay? But if it's choking you, like when you swallow, it's gonna limit you from getting into higher pitches. So you've gotta make sure that you have freedom of the larynx first, and then if you start to employ a high larynx for color, that's sort of a secondary technique, a more advanced technique that you can begin to employ, okay? But first you need to make sure that your larynx feels free. Now the larynx is a really, really curious mechanism. Why that is it's not connected to any bone. It's actually the only mechanism in our body that's not directly connected to bone. It's suspended in your throat by cartilage. So it literally can float like a bobber on the lake, okay? And the deal is you don't want it coming up in an extreme way, and you don't want it being pushed down. You want it to be able to float and be free as you move through your voice. Okay, so we want to make sure that as we're singing, it's not tightening like when we swallow. That's going to be way too extreme. But likewise, and this came very late for me in my singing understanding and my teaching, is you don't want to be pressing it down. So me coming from a classical background, I was always trying to create a dark, rich color in my baritone voice, and that was limiting me from getting into some of my highest pitches. No one had ever given me permission or told me that it could be appropriate for the larynx to rise. So when I'm coming up to these highest pitches, if I try to keep it down, and I'm going, whoo, I'm so stuck I can't access that pitch, okay? So even going back to a lip trill, once I start getting past the normal, traditional head voice register, and I start moving into what we would call the flageolet or the super head voice, I want to make sure that I'm allowing this to subtly rise as it wants to, as it needs to, so that I support those higher pitches. This unlocked another half octave in my range when someone gave me permission to do that. So as I'm coming up, instead of me forcing it down like, oh, okay, if I let it bob, you won't even hear the difference. See, I'm widening my embouchure a little bit. So if I'm trying to get up into those highest pitches, whoa, that widening and that subtle lift in my larynx is not choking me, it's supporting my extension into that highest pitch. But if I was to do the other way, I can't get it, I'm too tight. So the larynx, we have to learn, needs to be flexible. And this is still a very controversial subject. Guys, we've learned more about the voice in the last 10 years than we have in the 500 years before it. That's how new a lot of this training is. So even the training that I was brought up with, I've had to completely, I have to stay on top of it. I have to keep adapting. I got to listen to what other teachers and the vocal science community is saying. I've got to keep learning all the time because we've learned so much about the voice so recently. But that's also unlocking so many things that we want to do, like vocal distortions and singing with these contemporary sounds that some of your favorite singers decades ago, they were just doing through imitation and through style and culture. They had no idea if they were approaching it correctly or not. They were just singing from their hearts. But a lot of them fell apart because they weren't doing it correctly. So now we're able to look at it and we understand more than ever before. So if you've grown up thinking that you have to sing with a low larynx, that's totally normal. But the whole understanding of singing has moved forward with the science, and now we know that you should be allowed to let your voice rise and fall as it needs to. So if you're having the problem where the larynx is coming up and choking you, what we're going to do is do a laryngeal tilt exercise, okay? So let's try this real quick. This may also cause you to flip, but we're going to slide from O to oo. I want you going, oh. So you're trying to go from your normal level, your balanced speech, everybody say, oh. Oh my gosh. And then feel it get a little lower. Say, ooh, ooh, that's nice. Oh my gosh, ooh, that's nice. Okay? We're trying to go from that balanced, neutral level to that deeper ooh. Oh. And ideally, all that's doing for you is keeping you balanced, keeping you the same. We're not forcing the larynx down, but we're not letting it rise up involuntarily for the higher pitch. Let's try this. What would the opposite be? It'd be this. Oh, where the space in my throat feels like it's pinching off, it's closing up, and the pitch feels like it's getting strained. Okay? So you want to keep that beautiful, smooth color. That's soprano G. So if I was a feminine voice around here, I would start not making the larynx go down, but start allowing it to let it be free and maybe have a little rise if I wanted to climb above this pitch. And for masculine voices, we want to keep doing this for another half octave. And now we're up to that C5. So masculine voices, this is where I'm going to stop going, because I don't want to feel stuck. So on and so forth. You feeling that? Okay. Let's try a double octave arpeggio. Okay, on your lips real quick, or your tongue, or whatever filter was working best. And I want you to feel that. Start neutral, feel like it's free, but as the larynx needs to be accommodated, allow it to just float, almost like it's bobbing on the lake. Okay? Don't push it down and don't let it grab up, and just feel like it can float as you sing through evenly. A smooth stream of air, even volume, going for more range and more freedom. Okay? Let's try this real quick. 2, 3, 4. Let it be free. Use a smooth stream of air that doesn't change. Keep the volume even, don't push harder. Resist that temptation to get louder. are going to be able to surpass me. My tenors and sopranos can completely outsing me, okay? For real. All right? So you just have to be persistent with it. But guys, you know that we go through this vicious cycle with singing, okay? Which is like you really have a goal in mind, maybe you have a song that you want to sing and you come to it and you go after it in earnest, and then the whole thing feels hard and stuck. Maybe that's why you're here this month. Maybe you're coming looking for some guidance, okay? And so you come seeking this guidance, and then the teachers tell you, well, you need to relax, you need to learn how to release, and then the voice feels broken and out of control and vulnerable, so then you go back to trying to force it again. And it's human nature, but you kind of get stuck in this vicious cycle of either over-singing or under-singing, and you don't allow the voice to move forward. So it's really important that you have a healthy perspective, okay? I don't want you to ever mistake. I wouldn't be in business here in New York City if I was just teaching all my singers to sing like this, okay? But that's progress. So it's not that I want anyone coming out of my studio sounding light and vulnerable and airy. But the point is you literally can't move forward if you come in with force and tension and you're locked up. So it is a step-by-step progress or process, okay? So I want you to keep that in mind, very healthy perspective. You need to remember to practice smarter, not harder. And I hope what you're picking up today is a couple of approaches and maybe some new exercises, but you're gonna have to do these with a consistent, patient practice, and you're gonna start to feel that your voice moves forward. It shouldn't take you a long time. It could take you a month, it might take you a season, but you're gonna discover a whole new access to another range in your voice. But you do have to do the exercises regularly, you do have to make these silly sounds, and you have to practice mindfully. You've gotta keep the points that we're covering today in mind when you're doing the exercise. Otherwise, you're teaching yourself a very poor muscle habit. You're teaching yourself to sing harder as you sing higher, to sing louder as you sing higher, and you're hoping that one day you're gonna bust through a wall like the Kool-Aid man, and that's never gonna happen, okay? So you gotta make sure you're backing it off, and then you'll be actually setting yourself up to sing with more volume and more power.
Interested in more voice training? Visit us at wolfstudiosnyc.com.